Deuteronomy 13 through 17. We are not necessarily doubting that God will do the best for us. We are wondering how painful the best will turn out to be. Those are the words of C.S. Lewis. He is describing a very common feeling that we all have, and God knows that, and that is the desire for security and for safety. And our text today deals with two storylines that have to do with this. The first, let's go to the end of our reading. In chapter 17, God predicted that the Israelites, who just have Moses right now as a prophet, as a leader, will someday want a king because all the other nations have a king. That's in chapter 17. But God warns them that this king should not be interested in an army, a standing army of horses. He shouldn't be interested in power, many wives forming a harem, or wealth, silver, which is really odd when you think about it, that a king shouldn't do the very things that a king does. That's what he does to, strengthen his kingdom for his people. What's interesting is that, and there's two verses that define this very carefully in 17, he says, "What I want this king to do is to make a copy of the law, keep it at his right hand, and read it every day." In other words, you walk into that courtroom someday, I want you to be seeing a man who is dedicated to the Bible. The other story is in chapter 13, where God says, "You may come upon a prophet." In fact, let me read the text to you. This is 13, verse 3. "If there appears a prophet or a dream diviner, and he gives you a sign or a portent, saying, 'Let's follow and worship another god,' even if that sign or portent comes true, do not heed the words of that person." In other words, this prophet comes on the scene and he tells you something that actually happens. It's an amazing prediction. But then he says, "Let's follow another deity. That's where I got my information from." Well, don't believe him. Don't even follow him, because he is to be killed. I have a friend, in fact, she's one of the listeners to the Daily Dose, and she told me a couple weeks ago about a fortune teller that she's known for many years and will often go to her. And this fortune teller has told her some amazing predictions about her own life. What would happen to her first husband, that he died, then how old she would be when she would meet her second husband, and what he'd be wearing, and so forth, and on and on. And so the conversation went down this path of, could this be true? Could someone know the future? And of course there's false prophets out there, I'm sure, but is it possible that these spirits know things we do not know? Absolutely. And so God is not predicting that these are just a problem of taking your mind off God. No, these are actual people who can actually tap into a divine world of knowledge. Well, then the question came up in our conversation, well, why would God, and she caught this in the Daily Dose to this point, that God is much more interested in us worshiping Him, even though He is not in the business of telling us our future every day. What is it? Well, in chapter 13, it actually says this is a test of love. Listen to Psalm 145:17. "The Lord is righteous in all His ways, gracious in all His works. The Lord is near to all who call upon Him. He will fulfill the desires of those who fear Him. He will also hear their cry and save them. The Lord preserves all who love Him." Remember that living by faith means living by what or whom you know to be true, in spite of how you may feel.